Okay, it's 1 minute to kick off time. And thank you to people who are joining. Thank you, thank you. I'm just going to warm up the room a little bit, but I'll probably give it 2 more minutes before we properly get started. But a huge welcome to everyone who's joining so far. Thank you, thank you. And please do me a massive favor and tell people to come. Very important. We begin to support our own. So let's get more people into the room. So as many people as possible hear this conversation, because it's going to be a really good conversation. And I will start the introductions right about now. Okay, so very huge welcome to you all. Thank you for being here. My name is Beverly Bakoba Onyejiania, and I am the founder and lead faculty of BOS Africa, which stands for Business of Sports Institute Africa. And before I introduce my amazing guests, I would like to just tell you a little bit about BOS, why BOS was set up, what the objectives are, and hopefully convince you to be a part of something really big. So BOS was conceived as an idea in 2024 as a result of just looking around the ecosystem in Africa. Because I've worked in African sports for quite some time in various capacities, from a legal capacity to a policymaker capacity, and also from a grassroots perspective, being an owner of an academy in football and basketball for children. And one of the major things that stood out was lack of access to quality, affordable sports business education. Is my camera blank? Can you see me
Yeah,
now?
it's black.
Okay. Okay. Let me just work on that. Let me know if you can see me now.
Yes, we can see you.
Oh, you can see me.
Yes.
You can't see me?
No, I can see on my end.
Oh, no.
Okay, now I can.
Okay, great, great. Okay, at least you can see me. Very important that you can all see me. So as I was saying, we realized that, well, myself, colleagues, people in the industry, there was always a major issue regarding capacity building, regarding having a quality skilled workforce. So yes, sports is probably one of the biggest sources of labor, but unfortunately, it's a very, very fragmented industry where everybody's doing different things at different varying standards. So why BOS? BOS was basically conceived to address the issues surrounding lack of access to quality sports business education. Sports business education should not be limited to people that have access to funds, that have sponsors that can send them abroad to top-rated international sports business schools. And also the fact that in Africa, whether it's Nigeria, Ghana, Siombua's country, Kenya, Angola, and so many places, most of these countries in Africa only provide the courses at university level, which means you can be a busy professional and you may not necessarily have the time to enroll as a full-time student on a sports business management program. So what is BOS effectively trying to do? BOS is effectively trying to address the skills gap by providing flexible learning that is on par with any European or American sports business management program. So that's what we're doing at BOS. We're trying to provide solutions for Africans by Africans. So please do make sure you check us out, www.bosinstitute.com. And now I want to introduce my lovely guests who have made the time to spend with us today to basically share their stories, share their opinions on what they are doing to bridge the gaps in sports business education. So I'm going to do ladies first and introduce Siombua Kibua. And she is not only a powerhouse when it comes to sports business in Kenya, she was actually listed as the top 50 influential women in sports. And we have to give her her flowers because it's very important that we recognize people that are doing good things. She's also the CEO and founder of Skya. That is spelled Skeiya. Skya is a sports business agency also based in Kenya. And she does a lot of things. She does agency work, she does education, she does marketing activations. She's really in there when it comes to sports business. And she's also highly skilled as well. She also being the recipient of Sports Business Management Training Program in the UK. So you are dealing with people that know what they're talking about and have walked the walk. On my right, I hope you can see from my right, we also have Joseph Chimpapwe, another really great person in the sports business landscape in Africa. And I would say this to the Nigerians in the house, he's actually worked in Nigeria with one of the leading banks as an auditor. He is a consumer professional, regulatory compliance and audit in banking. But the football industry in his country, Zambia, felt that he was too much of a gem. So they poached him, and that is how he ended up in FAZ to begin with, the Football Administrators of Zambia. And then from being the deputy head of FAZ, he was now appointed as the CEO of the Zambia Premier League. So it is really, really awesome to have both of you with us. These are consummate professionals in every sense of the word, highly skilled, highly trained, and they are going to be sharing a lot of insights with us today about the intersection between sports, entrepreneurship, and education, and how really education is the catalyst for the transformation we are seeking in the sports business landscape in Africa. So the order of the day will be to allow Joseph to give us his keynote speech for about 10 minutes, and then invite Siombua to also share her amazing story. And then we get into the panel discussion. And then during the panel discussion, I would love if you could type your questions. It would be great to do a Q&A. Want to recognize people that have stepped into the room. I see some familiar faces. I see some highly skilled professionals as well. Shout out to AB in the room. Please, please, this is all about sharing knowledge. Drop your questions and let's have a really good time. We're running on the clock, an hour and a half only, so do bear with us. So let's make this fun. So Joseph, I'd like to invite you to please give your keynote speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Beverly and my colleague from Kenya and everyone who's watching us. Indeed, this is a momentous occasion. I think we should be very happy as Africans. 2 weeks ago, I was talking to some brilliant Nigerian person on data management, and he threw a challenge to me at how is it that, especially, referring to football and soccer in particular, that Africans, we easily know everything about European and world football. Yet, if I ask a question like in Nigeria, which are the main teams, Zambia and Kenya, we are left behind. And this is where I think what BOS is trying to do comes in very handy to create the right synergy, business on one side, sports on one side, and I think to close the gap, entrepreneurship comes in very handy. But I'll bring in one aspect that will be a critical factor, which is culture, basically. We'll be looking at transformational culture because it's not an easy thing that we are embarking on. But again, it's not insurmountable. I think I trust Beverly from the legal background, business. So in terms of creating a right synergy, we will need transformational culture. What is culture? Basically, culture is how you align your business goals and individual goals. And we are talking about individuals here because they are the people who will be engaging in the right education. And generally in Africa, sorry to say, I think we in Zambia, I don't know in everywhere, but I believe it should be the same. There's generally a poor reading culture. I think this is where we'll come in handy. We've got business there, we've got education. How do we bridge that gap? Coming to transformational culture, basically there are 3 key areas that are very important when you look at transformational culture. First and foremost is the strategy. How are you going to attain it? How are you going to attain your goals? That's very important. But you see, research was done, I think, by Harvard, where they said in terms of strategy, you'll find 96% of business leaders who will tell you that they have a running strategy in their organization. Yet when you speak to their top management, 90% of their top management don't know what that strategy is. And another key aspect is that out of every 10 strategies, only one survives by the 5th year. And I believe BOS strategy will be that one among the 10. So the key area, the second key area are budgets. I think if we are talking business, money, you can't run away from it. Of course, they say trust is a modern currency of trade, but you can't run away from money. On a lighter note, someone said, those who say money can't buy love go to the wrong shops. So money is very inevitable. So you need the budgets, and you see the importance of the budgets is to have cash flows. You don't want a situation where a business is running, tomorrow they're not able to meet their day-to-day activities. And the third key area, of course, is the structure. Have the right structures, the boxes and the lines. I think once you've done that, then you go again to focus areas. Which areas do you focus on? Firstly, obviously, it's a performance management system. How are people measured? How are people held accountable? And I think those are things that will make sure that are done. Then secondly, action plans. How do you attain your goals and objectives, which is a strategy? And ultimately, and most important, probably leadership. Leadership is very, very key. So I think once we have, we ensure that we have that transformational culture, then everything else flows in line. And besides, they say strategy will eat, your culture will eat your strategy for breakfast. So you need to ensure that you have the right culture. So I think in a nutshell, I think we'll speak to that, and we have to create the right strategy. We have to create the right synergy. And I can tell you it's not something easy. I think it will be a big, hairy, audacious goal. And I think to make sure that the big, hairy, audacious goal is attained, we'll look at three things. Do people have the right passion? That's the first thing. Do people have the right economic engine? Are people concentrating on their right competences? So those are things I think as Africans, we can do even better. This is why I brought in the aspect of BHAG. We shouldn't just feel that we are inferior to the rest of the world. We can actually become, I think we've seen countries like Rwanda, look what they're doing, an amazing job. Economically, some countries are turning the Seychelles. So I think if we put our hands together, and in terms of sports, like I was alluding to African fans, we need to ensure that you see our African clubs, we know when they are playing TV across Africa, matches are being screened. I'm able to, at any time, I'm able to watch a game in Kenya. I'm able to watch a game in Nigeria. By the way, Vipers of Uganda recently came to my country. They had a very good game. So I was saying, oh, this amazing team, I wish I could be watching them and follow them closely. Yeah. So I think in a nutshell, that's where we're coming in as business of sports. We want to create that right synergy. Education on one side, right, have the right balance, business, and of course, entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship, I think it's, I call it, you first draw a map. Map as an acronym, you have to have the right mindset, then the right action plan, and then you have to be practical. Then once you draw your map, you grow a leg. You learn, earn, and give. And I think that's where we will come in as a business of education. I'm very hopeful that obviously we'll be very creative and innovative as we go through the right ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for that. Thank you very, very much. And I want to just pick on something you said, which is about, yes, have the passion, but competencies. Competencies are key. And leadership, of course, brings everything together. And the business of sports is like any other business. You need an action plan, you need the right mindset, you need to possess the right skills. So thank you so much for setting the tone for the conversation. So now I want to introduce Yombowa Kibowa one more time. She's a visionary leader in Kenya, her home country, and actually on the African continent. She's responsible for quite a lot of sports business collaborations, activations. She's passionate, deeply passionate about education, and not just from a sports business perspective, also from women. She actually advocates to get more women into sports business. So Siomboa, no one can introduce you like you. I would like you to, tell us a little bit more about what you do. Give us some insights. What led you to set up Skya, and all the amazing collaborations you're doing, including the one with BOS. We want to walk that journey with us a little bit, so people here can be inspired. But more importantly, people who join this call are looking to have profitable, sustainable businesses themselves. Some of them are already successful and some are starting out. So I think the purpose of today's webinar is to really inspire action. We are looking for action now, no more talk shows. So Siomboa, I leave the floor to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Beverly, for the warm welcome. And actually, I want to echo as well, Joseph. When he was speaking, I was just like, yep, he's talking about exactly where I am right now. And that is because when Skya was formed, it was formed out of a need. And that is because prior I had been in the industry for about 6 years. So I started by running an academy, learning the ropes through there, and then I went for the education aspect of things, and that is where I got the opportunity to learn about the business of sports, which is basically the behind the scenes. This is what runs the industry. So a lot of people are so used to seeing either, if it's football, it's the 11 players on the pitch. If it's basketball, it's either the 3 players or the 5 players on the court, but nobody really knows about what it means to have an entire ecosystem running just to make sure those 11 players are on the pitch. Who is the behind the scenes? Who are the analysts? Who are the doctors? Who are the managers? What's it about the technical bench? And who manages all of this? And that is where I found my passion. That's where I found my space, and that's where I found what I really wanted to do. And that was to be able to open this opportunity to the African continent. The only thing is I studied away. And so most times when I was away, nobody in the classes where I was in, nobody was speaking about Africa, which was very funny. So everybody was giving different opportunities, talking about what is happening in their country. We had a few people from China, we had a few people from the European side, the Americans. And I was like, hey, I'm from Africa. And everyone was like, oh, do you guys have anything there? I'm like, yes, you see our players playing globally everywhere. Of course, we have something going on. But now the thing is, like, when I now decided to fully focus on the African continent, it was because I realized we produced the best athletes. Africa has the best athletes, but we have the worst backbone when it comes to supporting them. And so we are more in terms of exporters of talent as opposed to actually developing the continent side. And one of the things I realized is we do not have a commercial plan. We don't have a commercial value. We do not have a commercial thing or umbrella that we're able to actually show people, listen, you can make money from a football club. It doesn't have to always be a CSR project. And so Skya came in because of that particular aspect, in terms of being able to show people that it is possible to actually build an organization in Africa from the sports perspective that actually brings not just value to the athletes, but to the entire ecosystem. And this is where as well Rise Her Game came in, because one, women's sports is not that valued on the continent, but again, it's also a global thing. But at the same time, I realized we had a lot of women who didn't want to be athletes, but also wanted to be in sports. And I realized it's a good opportunity to introduce them to behind the scenes of where now they're able to learn about the other skill sets that they can use and contribute into the African continent. Because the next 10 years, Africa is going to is the subject of sports on the global spectrum. But do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the manpower to be able to fill in all these slots that we require within the 10 years? No, we don't. And that has led us to a situation where we are importing talent to Africa in order for them to be able to run our offices, because that's the skill set that we require. And so when BOS came through, I was so excited because I was like, something I can work with right now, because then it is for Africa by Africans. And we're in a situation of where now I'm able to actually push people to be able to take the skills that I had to really look for outside Africa in short form. At the moment, nobody has time to do a 3-year, 4-year course to be able to graduate. But the smaller certificates are able to give you the skill set that you require right now as you learn on the job. And so a lot of the skill sets when it comes to sports, because again, sport is an industry that changes per second. The technology that we use today is not what was being used 6 months, a year ago. Every time there's someone who's innovating, every time there's someone who's doing something good, and we need to be able to bring our people up to speed. And so BS became that place of where I was like, I feel at home here because I know what we really need to do, what we want, and how we can incorporate it. Because then now when we are opening we are opening Africa to the rest of the world, the people who are working for us are also Africans. So we do not have to go and look for technical people from abroad to come and work our machines. We actually have the technical people we have trained. I don't have to go and look for physiotherapists and sports doctors. It was interesting because recently when we were in a conversation with part of our government in terms of sports doctors, one of the arguments I had was, especially with our side of things, was that they really do not have registered sports doctors. But when it comes to a situation of where a player has been banned for doping, and you're asking them, okay, and they're saying it's because they didn't go to the right doctor, so they got a medicine that had a substance that was banned. When we asked, okay, give us the sports doctors you guys have worked with, they were like, oh, we haven't anyone in registered. And I'm like, so how, if you do not know, and you're the government and you're government people, what makes you think that we are going to have an African in the middle of the village who's an athlete going to figure out who are these sports doctors? If I have a headache, I'm just going to go and do an off-the-counter medication without realizing that it may have a substance that is going to get me banned by anti-doping. But there's not that much of the education that is there. And so we were like, okay, at this point, then we need to pump into more stuff into the industry. We need to pump in more people so that we are no longer depending on the outside continent to tell us what we need to do. We are now being able to focus solely on what Africa is able to bring to the table. Because for the longest time, we've been a participant and not actually an added value. And it's time for us to be the value, because our athletes are value everywhere else except at home. And so now it's time for Africa to raise up and start talking about making sure that our players are protected. We're able to trade them at the quality in which they deserve, as opposed to letting other people determine the value of our players.
Amazing. I've picked so many things and points from what you've said. Let me unpack it. You talked about Africa lacking a strong backbone to support the sports business ecosystem. And you've alluded to the fact that there is a general lack of awareness about that backbone. When you talk to people, you might agree with me, people just think of athletes on the pitch. They don't think about the analysts that sit in the back office. They don't think about the people like Joseph who are responsible for risk management and audits and governance within the sports business. They don't think about people like you, deal makers, deal brokers, negotiators, facilitators. There's more awareness about sports lawyers, but there's a huge ecosystem of skilled people that are sort of ghosts. Nobody talks about them. Nobody thinks about them. You've given us one example, critical example, which is in sports medicine, where there's a lack of registered sports medical personnel. I couldn't speak to you about the situation in Nigeria because I don't have the data. And that brings me to something else that you triggered in my mind, which is data. Where is data on number of exports on the number of risk managers in sports, on the number of sports business companies. There is no data. And that's another thing that BOS is also trying to solve, because as an institute, there's training and capacity building and skills uptake on one side of the picture, but another important side is research and development. And as an institute, we need to be seen to putting out reliable, credible data that Africans can have access to. Hopefully in collaboration with, say, the Zambia Premier League, or with Skya, or with anybody who is running a credible institution. So thank you very much for highlighting the lack of credible data, which in turn tells us why we don't have that backbone. Now, I want to just turn to Joseph. Joseph, I want to ask you a very upfront question now. You are a sports administrator. You've been working in this industry for years. Being frank, when it comes to hiring talent, and we're not talking about talent on the pitch. In Africa, when you say talent, everybody automatically thinks of pitch. When we talk talent now, we're talking about business talent, workforce talent. As an employer yourself, what challenges or positives have you experienced in terms of hiring? You know what? Because the people on this call, some of them may want to set up sports businesses of their own, and they need to know the realities of the landscape right now. And I will come back to you to answer the same question, Siambua. So Joseph, the reality today for anybody wanting to set up a sports business, maybe you're setting up a talent management company, maybe you're setting up a sports research company. What challenges are we experiencing today in Africa? Maybe you can speak from Zambia, Siambua can speak from the Kenya perspective, so we know what the reality is, and then we can start to discuss how to solve these problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the biggest challenge is our education system. Of focus. I believe it's across Africa. You find we learn like 10 subjects. There's no focus right up to the end of tertiary education, and we only produce people who want to work. There's that lack of entrepreneurship focus, and that for me has been the challenge. I can tell you what, I think a few years ago, I took it upon myself. I went to the University of Zambia. I asked about 20 people what they would want to do, and all of them, except 2, said they would want to run a business. And you see, this is coupled with a situation where the job market now has gone haywire. There are no jobs. So you'll find some parents, some even single parents, they will have educated their children right up to university using loans. They finish the education, no jobs. So I think we need to change the focus to one that is entrepreneur, such that immediately after someone finishes school, they're able to do anything. You'll find graduates, and I've always wondered, a person has spent 17 years in school. I joined, the first bank I joined, you go into management training. So I keep saying, so what they were learning is not fit for industry. And also the focus, I think, is more on education. We miss out on an important aspect of emotional intelligence. There's a pure lack of emotional intelligence, such that even the graduates, even people that are already working, emotional intelligence is a challenge. Then also a lack of strategic focus. Find strategies just remain on paper. At the end of the year, that's when they remember. Oh, come. I was doing some training, by the way, I do some training of an organization, a public organization. I think there were 40. I asked them if they knew the mission, vision, and values of the company. It was so disappointing, almost the entire room. And that was middle management. So I turned to top management and said, you know what? There is this gap. And there's lack of ownership through leadership. Leadership is another aspect that needs looking at. We want to be leaders through authority instead of character. And of course, education. I think by research, they say as a leader, you draw your authority 4% of the time from the authority that we like.
Yes.
10% of it comes from the knowledge. 50% comes from character. And character is just about your being. You get the point? Who are you? You have the right attitude. So in terms of competences, there is a great challenge. And what are the top 4 competences? Of course, problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, and people management. But those are given lip service. And by inherently, organizations also contribute negatively to getting the right people. Capacity building also, there is no M&E. You find heads of HR, it's more to do with meeting their KPIs. They don't bother to ensure that you see what is learned is put in practice. Execution, I think, is a fallacy in our continent. And they say execution is the only discipline of getting things done. I like being very practical. And they say, most leaders in Africa use opinions, not examples. And the world can only be changed through your opinion, can only be changed through examples. So we have to be practical. And I think this is where we'll come in handy. I like your vision, BOS, even when I first read it. It was actually talking to what I'm saying now. That it's coming for the right change. I alluded to transformational culture. So I think this is something that we really, really need to be truthful about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Precisely, we need to be honest with our current situation, so that way we can begin to be change makers, to be agents of change that we want to see. Siombua, I want to invite you to share your comments on regarding workforce, regarding skills. I think I want you to really deep dive into the skills, because again, there is that lack of general understanding about what sports business involves. It's seen as a very sexy area. Oh, it's exciting, but the nitty-gritty of what type of skills, and I love that Joseph already spoke to character, competence. We don't hear those 2 words enough when it comes to the sports business terrain. So please share with us, and again, maybe deep dive a little bit more into your skills. What kind of skills do you actually have, Siombua? I think people should know what it takes to truly be successful, because it's not a walk in the park, and we really want to see change, and we want to see more people come into this industry with their eyes open, knowing what is expected of them, so they're prepared to do the work and they're prepared to get the education. It's not an industry where you just stroll into. It's a low-hanging fruit industry. No, you need skills to do this industry. So it'll be great to hear from you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. First, I want to answer Joseph. The only reason our politicians have opinions and not examples is because they actually are not the example. So they can't give what they don't have.
Of course.
Yeah, and that is why. And I see, and the problem with that is because we end up putting in so many people in power who are not skilled in the industry, and then we wonder why the industry is not moving and why is it not changing. It's because the people who are already even seated in those seats, when you sit down with them to have a meeting, you realize you're the only one with the skill set to sort out a problem, but they've no idea what you're talking about. And so it's the challenge of being in this industry. Now, one of the things first I want to address, especially when it comes to the education aspect of it, is that recently I was in Poland. I was having a conversation because there's a team that I work with in Poland, and so I was dealing with a team at the time, and it was in the middle of a course between the people who are 13 to 18. So there was something we were trying to sort out in between, and one of the players said, we have to go because we have a skill class at the moment, and so we had to cut some few things short. And so when I inquired in regards to the skill classes that they're talking about, is like these young people have classes where they have carpentry, they have gardening, they have all these manual labor skills that are being taught in high school. Funny thing is, a lot of us, especially on the Kenyan side, these were educations that were removed from our curricula. Yet reality is, those are the skills that put food on the table. Because you see, when you're talking about people who are learning about, one of my most fascinating classes I ever did was learning about grass and the grass that is required on the pitch, and why a particular grass is better grown when it's on the East African side because of the weather, and that's the Bermuda grass. Initially, I had no idea about grass. If you had told me anything in regards to a football pitch when it comes to grass, I would have told you just plant grass. It's grass. I did not realize that there's a specific type of grass that is required on the, and this was a few years ago. And I kept talking to people about grass because I was so excited about, like, I just learned something new. And everybody was looking at me like I was crazy, like, you're talking about grass? And I was like, yes, because literally when you go to the other side of the world, there is someone who is hired to the millions to work on the grass on a stadium. And this person has a team of over 50 people just to take care of the grass.
Wow.
And I was like, do you understand that you can earn money from taking care of a grass of a stadium and have a and have a and so yeah, and so that is where our aspect of education came in. And I also want to say something again, Joseph, you were right, that when we come to our school set, our players, our students get to the age of 17, 18 when they are clearing their high school, and all they have is paper. They have no skill. So they go to university. University gives them another set of papers to tell you that they are qualified. But once they get into the industry, guess what happens? Everybody has general knowledge and nobody has skilled knowledge. So now we who are in the industry as the employers, we now have to retrain them on what we need them to do. To us, that is a waste of time. It is a waste of resources. It's a waste of money, because I'm supposed to be hiring you off the bat knowing that you're able to handle this. I would literally prefer if we started sports business education when they're in introduction of high school. It becomes a unit in what they have to do, or any business entrepreneurship course that is able to start when they're 13. So that by the time they're 17, the decision is, do I want to go to university and continue my education? Or am I in a capacity to get into the job industry and learn on the go, but I am still marketable because I actually have a certificate that tells me I am? Because you see, even for those who are doing, when it comes to, you walk into a job market, you're just fresh out of university, and we are looking for someone who has 15 years experience. Where are you going to get that? Like, you don't even have a 2-second experience because you haven't even worked in the industry. And at the same time, we're looking at a situation where people are telling us that by the time you get to college, you're supposed to look for an internship. Yet the rest of the world, internship starts in high school. These young kids are in internships at the age of 13, 14, 15. So they have a leg up against us by far. At the same time, we do not have enough businesses on the continent to be able to hire every single person who's graduating for university right now, which means we have to be able to find a way where some of these guys are able to hire themselves. And that means to be able to start training entrepreneurs from the get-go, which means parents who have companies start taking their kids to work to start learning what they're doing. We had a situation of where we have different companies going to schools to talk about their companies, but not on the surface level, but to be able to actually bring these kids to the companies to be able to see what happens behind the scenes. We need to be able to start introducing them into the industry as early as possible. For me, my biggest challenge is the fact that no matter what happens at the moment, I already know I have to retrain anybody who's coming into the organization, because this is not knowledge that they have. At the same time, it was knowledge that took me forever to learn. And that was having to get into the internet, look for courses that I was looking for schools that were offering it. None of it on the continent was offering what I was looking for. That's how I ended up in the UK. And even then, I had to almost do literally everything by myself. So I had to learn data analytics. I had to learn what do you call this? Different sides of the game, especially on the football side, for me to be able to understand what I had to do behind the scenes. So when it comes to analysis, when it comes to player analysis, team analysis, opposition analysis, this was education that I had to undertake myself in order to understand what it requires for a player to be there, but also what a company needs to bring to the table for the players to be okay. I find it interesting, especially when you're looking at a lot of the African players, and I'll speak from the Kenyan side, of where we are sending our national team to a country, or we are sending our athletes, because we're known for our athletes, to go and run and compete for Kenya in a different country. But when you ask for the information and you're asking for the data, why was this particular athlete picked as opposed to the other one? Everyone will tell you because they run fast. And I'm like, okay, perfect. Now, could you give me the statistics and the data that I can now go through to compare with other runners so that I know exactly where we are? Because again, the hours matter, the numbers matter. Numbers don't lie. You know, data doesn't lie. So we are able to see there's nothing like that. We took an entire team to go and compete in a different country. They didn't even have their psychologists. They didn't have their physiotherapists. And when we are asking the Kenyan side what is going on, they were like, oh no, there were too many people, so we had to reduce people from flying out. I'm like, do you understand the importance of the entire ecosystem just to have this one athlete on the pitch or this one player to run, the number of people it requires for support? And that is because they do not understand the business aspect of it, the value of having all these people going to just support one player or one team, and why they need to be there. And so you see, even sensitization onto the government side needs to be done. Sensitization to the athletes themselves to understand that the reason as to why you have 15 people behind you just to make sure you succeed is not because we need a lot of staff or we have a lot of money to pay people. Is because every single person has a role to play to make sure you're the best of your abilities. When we're investing in equipment to be able to monitor you, because especially for Joseph, you're in football. When we are training players, especially for the Europe, one of the things we're always requested is we have to do the health check, and we have to be able to send data to the team so that our data and their data, when they are checking the player as well, because they have to pass the health check, our data must coincide with their data. It's the funniest thing, because when you actually ask on the African side in regards to this data, they don't have it on their fingertips. So like they have to start doing one player immediately, yet this is something that should be in place so that it's easy to just send that digital information to a team, then they're able to assess even before the player arrives. And a lot of times I hear when our politicians talk about benchmarking, I think it's just a free ride to go to another country and enjoy themselves, because nobody ever comes back with the information that they're supposed to apply into the industry. So yes, I agree. Skills needs to start as early as possible. Education for the jobs and not just on being hired needs to start as early as possible. I say start it from the age of 13, if possible, even younger. This way, we've already created an ecosystem of where we can hire people straight from high school and then let them learn on the go, as opposed to getting them into school, doing, especially sports education in Kenya is in one university is 6 years. And I remember asking a university in terms of, are they doing a degree, a PhD, and a doctorate all in one? Because why is there 6 years out of their life just to do something, and then only to realize they're going to learn how to be a swim coach, and then in another course they're going to learn how to be a football coach, and then in another they're going to learn tennis. And I'm like, you're telling me there's no specialized education for this? And so they're going to get general information, and so the most they can get is to be hired as a PE teacher at a school. It's terrible, because then you've just wasted someone's 6 years. This is not medicine they were learning, you know. And also medicine is 4 years, and then the other 2 you specialize. Here you don't have that specialization on what they want to do. And so for us, we need to be in a position to start pushing the business of sports education as early as high school.
Oh, Siombua, that was really brilliant. You covered so many things, and I want to do my best to take the really important ones one by one, and then Joseph, I'll come back to you. On the comments you made about how the West, and even so the European West, the US West, and then let's talk about the Oriental West, they have advantage over us because they are young ones, they are youth, get involved at an earlier stage.
Yes.
Come out from secondary school, high school with skills. Many of them take extra jobs. Those who want to get into sports business know early on and start doing internships in the relevant places. I will say one thing positive. BOS recognizes that there is a need, like we are already behind. Africa has apparently a billion people skills deficit. Yes, that's how many people are in deficit as it is. So one of the things BOS intends to do is the threshold for learning is 16. Anyone can take courses, apart from the ones that are advanced. Anyone can take courses from 16 and above. And we did this deliberately because we need to break that ceiling that currently exists. We already are at a disadvantage compared to the rest of the world. So I just wanted to jump on that very important comment you made about how our youth come out on average with they're less exposed. Very few do internships, second jobs, very few. So that I believe is something I hope the general public will be happy to hear about. And I do share some of your experiences where you talked about how you had to learn some things for yourself on YouTube because you're passionate, you know where you want to get to. And you didn't allow the lack of knowledge in Africa stop you, although eventually you had to go to the UK for that extra training. But you were checking YouTube and it's funny, when I set up my academy, even though I didn't realize where it was going to get to, but I bought books. I was thirsty for knowledge. I couldn't find any local institute, whether online, although pre-COVID, I don't think online was that common. So at least in Nigeria, I didn't find anything. I just bought books to learn as much as I could about what it takes to run an academy. So you're very right that a lot of people have the passion, but lack the competence. And again, another worrying thing is we don't have enough sports businesses that are visible for people to go and work in. So I think you're right, that advocacy needs to be done. Maybe government can do their bit, but us private sector, I think it's on us. The buck really stopped with us. Government is not going to do it. So I think that's another reason why BOS was set up, for the advocacy, first and foremost, to say, look, the ecosystem in sports business is very large, from media and broadcasting to manufacturing to teachers like me and you, to auditors and risk managers like Joseph, to administrators, to talent managers, to lawyers. And it's about finding where you fit in that space and recognizing that don't be arrogant. You can't just start working. You need to be trained. But it's understandable that some people cannot afford to go to, like you said, Siombua, 6 years in university to learn sports business management. Makes no sense. That is not 21st century friendly at all. We are living in the most digitally fast time of our lives. We want people to be up and doing and going quickly and responsibly, but there has to be some kind of balance between time it takes to properly learn and not holding people into slavery for 6 years. So I agree with a lot of the things you said. We do need more speedier training and internships. And that's another thing BOS is going to do. Not just training and capacity building. We are also going to be very much at the forefront of recruitment. It's funny, I did a poll 2 days ago on the LinkedIn page, and the poll said, what are your expectations of BOS? I think there were 4 options. The first option, obvious, training and capacity building. There's 11 courses right now on the BOS website. I invite all of you who've not checked out the website to check it out, okay? And then the second option was jobs, recruitment, internship opportunities. The same way you have specialist oil and gas, legal recruiters, medical recruiters. We don't see sports recruiters. We don't see the really juicy jobs. Like, for instance, Joseph, he's a brilliant man. He was poached. He had the benefit of being sent a personal, we want you back home to do this role. How many people are visible enough like Joseph to have such an opportunity? So we recognize that the system is broken and dysfunctional and this is not connected. So one thing we want to do, and we hope that people on the call will find this useful, is recruiters, employers, organizations, big and small, Skya, or the Zambian Premier League, you can put your vacancies listed with BOS, because we're trying to build this ecosystem where people can come to the job board and find a sports lawyer. They can come to the jobs board and find a grass stadium facility manager. I loved what you said about how specific the grass is on pitches. It's not just any grass, you know, it's grass. There's a skill behind maintenance in sports. So I really enjoyed listening to you, because you kind of were addressing all the problems that BOS, is trying to solve. So Joseph, bringing you back into this conversation, hearing, based on where we've spoken so far, I know you've spoken a lot about competence, you've spoken a lot about character. I know you've always been someone that is very, very particular about character, leadership. Do you think that, having leadership programs dedicated is something that people would want? Because, we are new. Africans are relatively new to this area of very specialist sports business training. Do you think it's fundamental that, aside from the technical skills, is there a space for leadership in sports training, leadership in sports skills? What are your views on that?
I think basically management and leadership cuts across all spheres. So I think there's generally a misconception. I remember when I came into football, there was this misconception where people thought I was just coming with business ideas, but in no time, they started appreciating because results were being seen. You see, I told them one thing, that you see, to learn about a business skill or a strategic skill, there are 4 stages basically you have to go through. The first thing is you say, I know what is expected of me, like in this program or in a strategic outlook. The second thing is you should say, I understand what is expected of me, which is part of the change process. Then the next thing, you should say, wow, I think I can do it, before you get to do it. And this is the approach I took. And I realized that people now started appreciating. Because you see, we like working on assumptions that everyone should go through the same path. People have different assimilation stages. So using that approach, I think it has proved very handy. And I started obviously mentoring, especially the younger people. I brought in the mentoring aspect, because you see, there are three aspects, even with sports people, that we don't do. Of course, the day-to-day staff being taught how they can be skillful, that's training, right? Then the second aspect that is not done is the counseling, because people have personal problems. You need to hear them out. You find a player has gone off form, an athlete has gone off form. We don't take time to do counseling. And lastly, obviously, for growth purposes, because Africans inherently, we easily get to the comfort zone. But how can we go the extra mile? I think I'm not saying this because they're Nigerian. One aspect I like about Nigerian players, in terms of going to Europe, they take each other. But in our case, and they succeed. But you find from our countries, they become content with little. This is where mentoring starts at a young age. Yeah, like we've had the team, our boys team went to the under-17 World Cup for the first time. I was just mentioning that, you see, we need to mentor them. Let's not just look at the coaching, training, and counseling. Mentoring, so that, you see, they can get to the level of Messi's. God help us. It's very, very important. I think leadership is very key. It should cut across every sphere. But of course, you can't have the same standards. Obviously, in the business world, it's a bit more complicated. You need to slice it a bit. It has to fit to the relevant needs. According to the needs, you need to study. You need to find out the training needs. You need to find out the requirements, and you need to understand also. The other thing is our attitude. Attitude is very key, because attitude basically is the desire to do. The person can have the knowledge, which is the what to do. They can have the skill, which is the how to do. But if they have the wrong attitude, which is the desire, the two will be spoiled. In fact, conversely, Harvard said a habit has three things. The three things I've mentioned. 7.5 comes from skill, 7.5 from knowledge, 85% comes from attitude. So we tend to overlook the attitude. We blame sports people. No, they've gone down, but you see, attitude also spoils them. They go to Europe, they start getting pounds and dollars. They forget where they've come from. We have to bridge that gap. And this is where I think it comes in. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And would you, I don't know, I see a correlation between having a poor attitude and maybe not being exposed in terms of just understanding more about the ecosystem. In fact, to my mind, I kept thinking, even let's talk finance. Let's talk finance. Do people really understand what it takes to do sports financing, investing? Do people really know the mental capacity you need to do the budgeting, the forecasting? It's not just about, oh, we're playing sports because we're passionate. Maybe if people understood truly what it takes to run sports businesses, maybe the attitude will be better. So, you know, the people just don't have a real understanding of the technical skills required. So the attitude becomes bad. They don't understand why we're not getting certain things. They don't understand why they don't have what that other team has. So, you know, I wanted to, you know, get into even the finance side. People come and they don't have financial skills. They don't have financial literacy. They don't have the knowledge of what it takes to run a sports business or to sustain, you know, the sports business. I can't imagine what it's like for you, Siombua, Joseph. You're running businesses that require overheads. You're looking after so many employees, support staff. It takes a lot, and it takes skills to do that. But again, there is that sort of complacency when it comes to sport. That's something we really need to change. Something we really need to change. We see other industries, people wake up and say, I'm going to go do an MBA. I'm going to do my MBA at. But you don't hear that. You don't see our sports leaders doing that. You rarely see your sports leaders saying, yeah, I'm going to do my MBA and to develop my knowledge. But when last did we see that? So I think that ignorance, lack of knowledge, it trickles down. It's like a top-down thing. The tone at the top as they say in compliance, will always affect the people at the bottom. So the expectations are low, everything is low, and then we wonder why we attract the wrong people into the industry. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Sumbo.
But you see, I think for me it is because for a very long time on the continent, sports has always been seen as an extracurricular activity. And it
Yes.
hasn't really been seen as the business that it is supposed to be. Unlike everybody else, whereby it is a business first, and then everything else, and then the sport is the extracurricular activity, but it is a business. And you see, the problem with that is, so that now you come into a situation where people are coming into the industry who were probably footballers at a period of time, they've retired, and then they've come in and they formed an academy. But when you're asking them, okay, it's a fantastic idea to open an academy, we've seen this before, you want to train the next generation of footballers, where is your background knowledge, or where are you going to base this company in? Because at the end of the day, you're coming in to form the sports industry is one of the industries that, like medicine, 100% focuses on people. This is a people changing career type of field. So if you're going to open a football academy, it means the children who you're going to recruit to your academy have certain expectations. Now, everybody, if possible, some of these kids already watch international teams play. So exactly, they want to be the Messis, they want to be the Ronaldos. So there's an expectation to it. But the person who came to form the academy has no background education when it comes to sports management and company completely, but has started a club. And then now from there, it's like, okay, so I don't have footballs, I do not have cones, I do not have a training manual. When you're asking them, like, what is your plan in terms of training? I see you have under 6. I see you've got the under 15s. I see these are different categories of players who require different trainings. What do you have in place for that? You find that one person, he is the coach, he's the finance guy, he's the PR, he's the HR, he is the entire docket that requires to run this. Yet reality is these are supposed to be different people running this company because it's supposed to have structures. So now when you're telling them, listen, you've got to have a seat, you've got to figure out how to run this company, first register it as a company because it is a company, and then now be able to start putting in structures so that at the end of the day, you have a backbone that's able to support the players you're coming into your club. Because I've seen a lot, and especially in Kenya, a lot of times, especially the grassroots football teams, they only go for capacity. We have 200 players, we have 300 players. But in reality, you're not giving them the best output because you're the coach who's training everybody. So you're finding that the players who are 6 years old are training with the ones who are 17. And you're like, there's supposed to be a training difference and a training plan for everyone. And now that is where we came in terms of we have to now look at the bigger picture. There has to be structures put in place even before you decide that you want to open any team when it comes to sports. We are now looking at a situation where basketball, NBA has come in, it's coming to BAL, and it's telling us that now we can buy into the franchise, which means we're no longer in a situation of where my team really has to qualify to get to a certain level. I can buy in. And if I buy in, I'm spending millions to buy into this team, which means I'm going to go on a recruitment haul to pick up some of the best players to be able to put my team onto one of the best to always remain in that league. But you see, for me to be able to do that, it means that I have to have the background knowledge and education to be able to do that. So you see, I do not have to have it by myself. It means I'm going to hire a recruiter who is proficient on that side. I am going to be hiring the people who are going to be managing the players, but I also have to hire the nutritionist to make sure these players are okay, because I cannot be a one-man fits all. And this comes with the knowledge of how to manage and run a business behind the scenes. And so when people start looking at sports as the business that it is, then the mentality will eventually have to change. You have no choice. Because you see, for us as Kia, one of the things that I really want to do, and especially next year, once we start opening some of our facilities, is I want to partner with schools that during the school holidays, some of the older students, which is now the 16s to 18s, can come for an almost like paid internship to the spaces. Then now we start introducing you to see what it looks like to work in a sports company, a sports organization. What does it look like behind the scenes? This is the only way we feel like it's going to be easier to introduce you to the industry, so that by the time when you're 19, 20, 21, when you're feeling like you have failed at the sport, you start coming back looking for something to do in terms of doing in sports. No, we want you to start from the get-go. This is not a retirement plan. This is the full from the beginning. We need you to get into the industry and work with us. And at the same time, like other clubs need to be able to do that. If you are training these same students, allow them to be able sometimes to come in for internships. So now they get to understand the behind the scenes. Why is it so important for you to have 6 or 7 physiotherapists? Why is it important for you to have an actual sports doctor who's certified in that industry? There's a time when we, during when we had some of the games, and someone was asking, why do you have an ambulance on the field? Why do we have 2 ambulances on the field? And I'm like, okay, because again, anything can happen. And this is why we have, but you see, that also showed me that people do not understand why things are there. They just know they're there, but they just don't know why they're there. And so there's some who just assume that we do it for the show, that, yeah, we can afford to have ambulances on the pitch. Yet in reality, we can't afford anybody to fall sick. You know? When when you're partnering up with insurance agencies for sports insurance, and you're telling the players that, listen, you're gonna have to have a sports insurance cover because you're an active athlete. So in case of there's an injury, you're covered. But a lot of people are not covered. A lot of our players are not covered. And you know, yeah. And I'll also echo what Joseph said in regards to attitude. The times when I used to be a scout, a lot of times I didn't even bother watching the game that much. I used to go early before the game started, which is about an hour before the game started, just to watch the players as they came out of the bus and walked into the pitches, and or they walked into their game area. And all I looked was the attitude towards other players, the attitude they had towards the coaches in terms of helping out. How are they talking? I was actually watching their attitude. What is their reaction when they lose a goal? What is their reaction when they lose a game? And that is how we started to determine which players we could work with. Because if you have a good sporting attitude, then football is a skill, or basketball is a skill that we can train you on. But if you have a terrible attitude, then we cannot train you on it. We don't know what to do. And one of the things that is part of commercial sports is image. And part of us training in image is how do you react? Otherwise, you're constantly going to have a player in your organization who's always trending for the wrong things. And so it's such a diverse industry and ecosystem that requires so many people to be able to run so many things. And at the moment, we need to be able to start training and recruiting the capacity of people as soon as possible, like as yesterday, because we have so many opportunities for people to work in, but we do not have the capacity, we do not have the people. And I personally do not want to hire from outside the continent. So it means we're going to have to fight for another year to make sure everybody is trained before we can get them into the system. But I'm okay with that. If there's one thing we know, is sports is a lifetime career. So we have time.
Absolutely, yes. And again, I love that you spoke about image in sports. Image is huge. Lawyers play a role, intellectual property, talent managers play a role, chaperones play a role in keeping them in check so that there's no reputational risk to the company. I mean, it goes on, and that also requires training. dig into the questions. There's a couple of questions that have come in. So, and I'm inviting the audience. Thank you so much for, just listening so attentively. We want to take questions, as many questions as we can. So I'm just going to start with this question by Nana Twom. Hi, Nana. And it says, from Ghana, is there a link between BOSS and After's vision? I guess that question is for me, maybe. Okay, so After's vision is really to foster trade. So I'm speaking with my lawyer hat on. So After, if for those of you who do not know, is the African Continental Free Trade. It's a treaty and it's been signed by over, I think, 30 African countries. Not all, because we are 54, but 30 something is not a bad start. And it acknowledges the fact that, did you all know that intra-African trade currently stands at about 2-3% of world trade? It is terribly low, terribly low. African countries are not trading with each other. And this is even the same in sports business. Most of the time when we're talking about exports really to the Western world, the UK, Poland, Latvia, US, China. Yes, there is some level of trade going on. Some Nigerians are going to Kenya, some are going to Zambia, but the numbers are not quite as much as we would like. We would love to see that intra-African trade step up. So yes, BOS indirectly is helping not solve, but is helping to drive intra-African trade through capacity building, because BOS, if people don't know, is a Pan-African initiative. Siombua, who we've heard from so far, is one of our partners. We have partners from Ghana, Tanzania, Uganda, Egypt, Liberia, Senegal, and hopefully South Africa. So we have partners in, I don't know why we don't have a partner in Zambia, Joseph, but we can talk about that later. But, we have partners across the continent, north, south, west, and east. And the reason for that is because we know that Africans by nature, we are very lively, we're very jovial, but sometimes there's a little bit of distrust between each other. Not because we want to, but because of the colonial factor, unfortunately. Long historical colonial rule has made us distrustful of each other. But when we get to know each other, it's usually great, right? So one of the strategies that BOS is using is having key country partners that will help to break the ice. So we've got Siombua. She's already doing a lot of big things in Kenya. And we met coincidentally on an African Women in Sports platform, and we hit it off. And we said, we can do this together. We can come together as partners for BOS. And the same with our Ghanaian partner, who I met through one of BOS's pilot programs. And it goes on and on. BOS is really about harnessing the power of collaboration, the spirit of Ubuntu. Because the truth of the matter is, one country alone cannot change the narrative of sports business education in Africa. It's not possible. We need a collaborative continental effort so that when we're talking about sports business education that can rival Spain, that can rival US, that can rival UK, we can stand together as a continent. So yes, I do believe that we are helping indirectly to meet some of the After objectives. And in fact, the SDGs, right on the website, we are meeting 4 SDGs, which include access to quality education, gender equality. As you can see, there's 2 women here and 1 man, which is narrative that sports is male dominated, right? But we need male allies. We need male allies like Joseph, who can help lend their voice. And Joseph, happy International Men's Day to you.
Yes, it's
Thank you
today.
very much. Thank you.
To support women in sports and the advancement of sports across the continent in general. So look, we can't do it as women alone. We can't do it as men alone. It takes all of us to come together. So I hope that answers your question regarding how BOS is sort of helping to drive after. And I will add this, that even the payment platform we use is hopefully one that people across the continent will find very seamless. At the end of the day, we can't wait for the commercial banks to do it for us because they're not doing it yet. So we rely on entrepreneurs who can see that there's a broken system across Africa. So we have a very good, safe platform called Selar.com, and that platform allows people pay for their courses from most African countries, Kenya, Uganda, Ghana. You can pay very easily for your courses with Selar. So, you know, there's really no reason for us not to do business together. Then there's another question here which says, how does one position him or herself in basketball and wrestling in Nigeria as a lawyer? What are the opportunities? Maybe you can speak generally, Joseph, about positioning in sports. If you want to come in as a stakeholder, you've seen where you want to play, no pun intended, in the ecosystem. Generally speaking, you want to come in as a data analyst, you want to come in as a lawyer, you want to come in as an administrator, you want to come in as a talent manager, a grass facility manager. What advice would you give to people who want to find their place in the sports ecosystem and make a success of it?
Generally, knowledge is only power when you share it. And I think as BOS, that's one thing with the technological advancements that we have cutting across. Anyone, I think, will be free and an opportunity will be given to everyone. And it's all about stakeholder management. I think we'll have the right stakeholder management and open. And you speak about the ecosystem. That's the only way we can build the ecosystem. If we have equal, of course, not equal, probably equity. Equity comes to the table. Everyone will be encouraged. It's about open communication. Communication lines should be kept open. Yeah, through the different channels of distributive channels. So everyone, I think, will have an opportunity as long as they have the right attitude and the right interest. That's all I can say.
Simbo, you want to chip in on that one?
Yes, but I'm just going to not focus just on Nigeria alone, but on the sports industry as a whole. And this is how I'm going to give myself as an example on how I position myself to get to where I got. When I initially wanted to come into the Kenyan market, I found the Kenyan market very, very aggressive. It was very close cut. It was, we do not want women in this. There was a full block in between. And so I ended up going out, building my name outside, and then coming back. But the one thing I learned from that was, during that particular period, I realized that I didn't have to fight for a seat on the table. So I decided to build my own table, put my own seat, and then build my own narrative. And so sometimes you may be trying to find yourself into a position of where you really want to be in there, and yet reality, it is your conversation and what you do that is going to make you strategic into that space. Use your power of social media to be able to talk about what you do. LinkedIn is such a great place to be able to just talk about your work and get seen by different people, but as well as the other social media platforms. And this is able to give people the narrative of who you are. You're a sports lawyer, you have an interest in legal. I actually took sports law not because I wanted to be a lawyer, but because I needed the knowledge to argue out a few things. It's the competitive nature in me of where I have to find knowledge before I am able to go into a room and have a conversation. So I ended up doing the introduction to sports law just to be able to win an argument. But at the same time, it's the aspect of being able to place myself in a situation where people now, I had a voice that was able to have people pay attention to what I was saying. And that is because I deliberately put myself out there. I keep telling people that if you are not visible, then people do not know who you are. People don't know where to find you. So you're gonna have to start putting yourself out there, start having conversations and build traction so that the right people are able to find you when they're looking for you.
Fantastic. I fully agree with that. You have to start having conversations. You have to be bold. You have to. I like what you said, Sionboa. Don't go out there talking about things you don't know nothing about. You end up coming across very, very floozy. You need to be confident from knowledge, not confident from, having a braggadocious attitude. My confidence, it comes from my knowledge, the time I have invested in building knowledge. And that's something I feel is a lifelong mission for me. And that mission is and that's the mission of BOS as well. We want to empower people through knowledge. So yes, social media is great for networking, conversating, sharing opinions, but the truth is opinions are not enough to establish your visibility and your authority. If you want to become an authority in something, you need the technical know-how. So for the lady that was asking, how do I establish myself in these areas, wrestling, basketball, you really need to understand those industries, do courses, mini short courses, understand the commercial realities of those industries, because I would say that some of the best lawyers you have are the ones that can speak to the commercial side. The practice of law is not theoretical. No, it's not. The practice of law, some of the best sports lawyers are the ones that know the industry, the nuances, the things that only people who are in the industry know. So, go network, join their professional bodies. You see, nothing is free. You're going to have to invest time, knowledge, and resources. So I really hope that answers your question. I mean, time is fast spent. We have 10 minutes to the closeout. I really want to use this opportunity to say a huge thank you to our guests, to you, Sionboa, and to you, Joseph, for the awesome insights you have brought today based on your experience, your years of experience, your willingness to stand out. You could have done the same thing everybody does, just based on your networks, proximity to power. You just go in and conform, but you have both chosen not to conform. Change management is something Joseph talks about a lot, and I'm sure that's because of his audit risk management background. Change management is something we all have to embrace, especially when you want to crack an industry like sports business. There's many people out there that give up very quickly because they meet a lot of resistance. But we've had the benefit of talking to two amazing sports business professionals, a consummate administrator and a visionary sports business leader from Kenya, that are both doing a lot to blaze the trail. These are the sort of people that BOS is proud to be associated with. Sionboa, for the sake of people from Kenya and East Africa on the call, is our country representative. So anything you want to know about BOS in more detail, please reach out to her. Sionboa, if you have time, you can just drop your social media handle, drop Skya's social media handle. If you're not following BOS, I don't know why you're not. Please, you need to. Can you please follow us on LinkedIn, Business or Sports Institute Africa? We're also on Instagram, and we're also on X. Joseph, also, if you want to drop your handle. I know, Joseph, you're not too you're not so much of the social media type, but still, it's you never know. From his busy schedule, he might have time to say hi or interact. So, but I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you. Some of you have been here the entire time, and you could have been doing something else, but you chose to be here. big thank you to all of you. I do hope you have time to interact with us. We're also running an offer this week on courses. So please, don't hesitate to reach out. The courses will start in January, and we have some exciting courses. We've got sports data analytics. We've got sports business administration essentials. We have content development in social media. We have sports and AI, which I think a lot of us might be interested in. We have governance for those amongst us that have a legal leaning, and those amongst us that want to consult for sports bodies that really need a lot of support when it comes to leadership and structure. Sports governance might just be the course for you, but do go and check. We have a lot of articles as well that intersect between sports, finance, entrepreneurship, workforce, human resources. We have a lot for you. So a very big thank you to you all. This recording will be available on our YouTube channel as well. I think someone just asked. Okay, yeah, thank you, Siombua. Siombua has just dropped her details. Please follow her, and please follow the Business of Sports Institute Africa on LinkedIn, and just stay tuned. Thank you very much. It's been really great. Thank you once more to our guest, Joseph Siombua. Thank you very much. I'm honored, very honored. Thank you.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Asaf, thank you. Thank you.